store. I mean, to the park if you want to go get the screws.
Hey. Hey.
We're gonna go to the park. Hold on.
Jesus, dog.
They only need to go in here and here. But see, it's just to hold this part in. It doesn't screw anything in.
What do they do?
Dad says it slides and it'll pinch the cords or something. Or there's something in here that slides.
Okay.
I don't know. There's some inner. Maybe it's this. I don't know.
Alright.
That slides, and if you don't. But they're tiny. But they don't have to pierce plastic.
Okay.
They just wedge it. I'm just telling you what he told me.
Okay. Just give you kind of weird because they're self-tapping screws. I don't know if they have them. We'll see.
Well, we can't put it on without it, according to Dad, so.
Okay. We'll see what they have. I did not want to feed him. and chickens. Oops.
I'm gonna be honest, it's always fucking Google debunkers with this guy. Google debunkers this, Google debunkers that. I can't throw a stone without hitting a fucking Google debunkers. Oh, my old lady, the old ball and chain, the goddamn woman drives me fucking Google debunkers. It's cold in here, Jesus Christ. Oh my God, it has increased 4 degrees. That space heater is doing its best. You know what I need? I need a little pick-me-up, because now we're gonna be talking about ancient Antarctica on maps. Wow, it's fucking cold in here. Woo! All right, it's 1 p.m. somewhere. And that somewhere is right here. Ooh, that's good. When Philip did his watch through of Ancient Apocalypse, he learned something really interesting. And that is that there are ancient maps that depict Antarctica. And Philip was stoked about this. And so he made it all of our problem.
But even ancient maps painted Antarctica as green.
Philip, fucking God, depicted Antarctica. Is that your evidence? I'm gonna assume that you're using this as evidence for Antarctica being green because it's what you're showing while you're talking about it. How do I put this? What the fuck, dude? Okay, I need to see it on here. Believe it or not, the images that show up aren't actually on the screen. Look, Gianfranco, you can put any image up there right now and I won't know what it is. Wow, I have very strong feelings about this image.
But even ancient maps painted Antarctica as green.
Oh my God, you are fucking dense. Okay, no. That does not mean that Antarctica was green, Philip. That is not at all what that means. Let me make this full screen, what the fuck? Okay, why don't we extrapolate your logic here a little bit, Philip? So if we're looking at this map, which is from one of the earliest full atlases of the world, you can see that part of Africa is green, part of Russia is green, part of the Near East is, oh no, the Near East is red. Philip, you see where I'm going with this, right? This doesn't make any fucking sense. You know, when they color in like states on a map, they're not coloring them in order to, you know, depict what they actually look like. They're coloring them in so that you can differentiate them between each other. They use 3 colors to do this. It looks like they used yellow, green, and red. If the Antarctica was red, would you still be using this fucking map? I don't even know how to debunk this. That's just kind of dumb, dude.
Twice the size of Australia and was thought to be ice-free as recently as 6,000 years ago.
It was most definitely not thought to be ice-free as recently as 6,000 years ago. I don't know who would ever make that claim. Do you have any idea how much the sea level would have been up 6,000 years ago if Antarctica was ice-free? What the fuck is this about? So we do ice core drilling in Antarctica. You can find little gaseous bubbles trapped in the ice, which can tell us all kinds of horrifying things about our planet. Those ice cores have ice that can go back as far as 2.5 million years. Philip, where the fuck are you getting this number that there was no ice on Antarctica 6,000 years ago? How does that even make sense? 6,000 years ago was like the tail end of the last glacial max. Well, 10,000 years ago. It was like 20 to 10 that ended. But still, 6,000 years ago, the Earth was colder than it is now. Why would it have had no ice on it, and how would it have been completely covered in ice since then? What?
This map from 1513 by sailor Peary Rays shows a perfectly accurate coastline of Antarctica.
Philip, I get that you watched Ancient Apocalypse once, but the least you could have done is at least do some Google debunking. Maybe if you Googled something, you wouldn't be making videos that are dumb. That's not the coastline of Antarctica. That is the coastline of South America. It hooks in a weird way because someone was sailing around the continent with a fucking pencil and a piece of paper trying to draw it. They didn't have the luxury of the satellites that we have today that prove that Antarctica is not connected to South America. But Milo, how do you know? It might have been that way for some fucking reason. Well, if you actually read the Peary Reese map, it says on the part that should be Antarctica, the place with all the snakes. Now, I'll let you guess which one that sounds more like, Antarctica or, you know, the very hot, humid forests of South America. Just ridiculous. I do think it's very funny, though, watching the do-your-own-research crowd clearly have one source for all of their information and then just, you know, parroting it over and over again and clearly not doing any more digging into any particular topic.
This map connects South America to Antarctica, which it could very well be that over 10,000 years ago, these two continents were connected by a sheet of ice.
Okay, well, two things to note here. First and foremost, that is footage from Ancient Apocalypse. I think I rest my case. And secondly, what the fuck, Philip? I thought you said 6,000 years ago was ice-free.
Thought to be ice-free as recently as 6,000 years ago.
So 10,000 years ago, the ocean, the salt water between the tip of, you know, Antarctica and Terra del Fuego had completely frozen, but 6,000 years ago, it had all melted away. I'm gonna bludgeon myself over the head with this bottle so I can be thinking on the same level as you. What the fuck is this about? I think it's kind of interesting how these people will talk about ice. Ice has a really hard time of traveling across water, but it has a really easy time of traveling across land. The reason that the ice sheets got so far in North America is because, you know, they kind of came into northern Canada and then they could just traverse all that land coming down. But they have a lot harder time in water because they float and break and, you know, break off and the water is salt water, so it doesn't freeze quite as well. So the Earth would have to be really fucking cold in order for an ice bridge to form over the sea and make it to the bottom of Terra del Fuego. You would need a really cold fucking planet to do that. And if you want to tell me that the planet went from being cold enough to have a ice bridge between Latin America and Antarctica 10,000 years ago to having no ice on the whole continent in Antarctica 6,000 years ago, and now there's ice there again, Philip, you gotta get your fucking story straight, bro. This doesn't even make sense.
Ciao, post-editing Milo here. I want to quickly add something about the glaciers that I forgot to mention in that part. The way that a glacier forms is not by just like rivers freezing and ice magically appearing. A glacier forms from layers upon layers of snowfall. So during an ice age, it's a lot colder, so a lot of the precipitation is snow instead of rain. And so as the snow piles up layer after layer, it eventually creates an immense amount of weight. And under all that weight, the snow is compressed into ice. This is why it'd be really hard for an ice sheet to connect Antarctica to Latin America, because the snowfall is ending up in the ocean, whereas in North America, the snowfall was landing on land, allowing the layers to accumulate and the glaciers to proceed much farther. Anyway, I just needed to come in to add that because I kept watching this video on the editing table, and every time I came to this part, I'm like, if I don't mention the part about the snowfall, it's not gonna make sense. Anyway, okay, that's all I have to say. It's a beautiful day. I'm going for a walk. Bye.
Also, when people talk about sea level rise from climate change, the place that all that water is coming from is Antarctica. In the northern hemisphere, all of that ice is more or less seasonal, like ocean ice. There's not a land mass up there, and so because of that, all that ice is pretty much in water, and therefore the sea level is as high as it would be whether it was liquid or solid. But on the South Pole, because it's all on an actual landmass continent, all of that ice does not contribute to the height of the oceans. So if all the ice on Antarctica were to melt, the ocean level would rise a bunch. So this theory is predicated on the fact that pretty much 6,000 years ago, there were no ice caps. We would absolutely know if the sea level was like 300 feet higher than it is now. How much would that even be? How high would sea levels rise if there was no ice? 230 feet, Philip. Where the fuck is the evidence for that?
We're supposed to believe ancient humans managed to find their way around every single continent in the world, even discovering the microscopic islands of the Pacific Ocean. And somehow they just fully skipped Antarctica even when it was a luscious green paradise?
Yeah, what a bunch of dumbasses. You can find the tiny Pacific Islands, like, that's kind of crazy. But you didn't even find Antarctica? God, ancient people were losers. You know what, Philip? That's a good point. I'll agree with that, but let's do a little critical thinking here. Humans were able to find the tiny Polynesian islands, which is a shot in the dark, and yet they did it. So do you think that it's more likely that people never found Antarctica, or if they did, they didn't fucking stay there? Philip, Antarctica is a terrible place. No human would want to live in Antarctica. The only people there are like researchers and shit. There's no plant, well, there's plants now, but that's a whole different conversation. Drinking to the downfall of humanity. I just read a great book called The Wager. It's amazing. It's about an English ship that gets shipwrecked like off the coast of Patagonia. It takes place in like the 1740s, and it talks about, you know, the journey around and what it's like actually traversing those waters. The waters around the Arctic are so fucking dangerous. There's no reason for people to want to go down there in wooden ships. I also think it's really funny that he says, why didn't we go there when it was a luscious green paradise? Well, we probably would have if we could, but unfortunately we showed up to that about 90 million years too late. I think that where conspiracy theorists get the whole Antarctica being ice-free thing was them vaguely remembering a book they read when they were a kid that talked about how during the late Cretaceous, the continent was near the equator, and it was also the warmest the planet has ever been, and so therefore there was like rainforests on it. But there are not rainforests now. The continent is now at the bottom of the planet, and we are at the end of an ice age, so we kind of missed the mark on that one. It's less of a matter of did people reach Antarctica, and more of a matter of if they did, they would have wanted nothing to do with it. It is a cold, barren, desolate place with almost no food. Parts of the year, there's literally no sunlight. There's no wood. Like, there's just no reason to be there. God, why didn't they colonize the worst place on the planet? Also, another kind of crazy thing that I learned is during the Cretaceous period, which is one of the warmest parts of the planet's history, the atmosphere had 1,000 parts per million of carbon. Now, during the 1800s, the atmosphere had about 250 parts per million of carbon, which is, you know, pretty low. That's why it's much colder. Do you want to know what the parts per million of carbon is in the atmosphere right now? 450. The parts per million of carbon has doubled since the 1800s. But climate change is just the woke media. You know, just keep consuming and consuming and consuming, and, you know, we can all dance on the grave of the planet later. Who gives a fuck?
Back in 1912, Captain Robert Scott led an expedition to the South Pole.
Oh boy, okay, Robert Scott. Well, you know what that means. It's time to talk about the Hollow Earth.
Heavily restricted tourist travel to the majority of Antarctica. For your own safety, of course.
Oh, of course. Of course they want people to be safe. Philip, would you go to Antarctica if you had the option to? Remember what I said earlier about how Antarctica is like the shittiest place ever? I don't think you would. I don't think that's a very nice place to go. I think that you would probably say, no, I'll stick to Aruba, thanks. Although I do have a weird hunch that you're Canadian, so maybe you would go there. I don't know. You have a little bit of a Canadian accent at times, and I don't know if I'm like reading into it wrong, considering you look like you're from like Dade County or something. But honestly, I respect a Canadian frat bro. We don't have enough of them. Oh, anyway, where the fuck was I going with that? Oh yeah, conspiracy theorists love to like paint this idea that it's like they're hiding something in Antarctica because they don't want you to go there. And most importantly, you can go there. There are tours to Antarctica. You can take a ship to Antarctica. I don't know why you'd want to, because it's fucking Antarctica. There's nothing there. It's just snow and ice in every direction forever. And when they say that they restricted travel there, they meant like, you know, individual travel, like personal travel to Antarctica. And of course they restricted that because it's so fucking dangerous. The ocean around Antarctica is the only like unobstructed like ocean current in the entire world, and it's freezing cold. If you guys have seen any videos from like the South Seas, like no, of course, they didn't restrict it to cover up the Hollow Earth. They restricted it because people would fucking die going there.
While scouting, him and his crew stumbled on something that no one in the world would have ever expected. Discovers an enormous opening in the icy surface. Him and his squadron fly into it. They're surrounded by a luscious green landscape, seeing giant creatures roaming around him, and he's brought to a shimmering rainbow city. He's surrounded by these flying disc-shaped objects that lead him to the ground, and he's brought to a tall being called the Master.
Cap, no way. bullshit. Absolutely fucking not. Now, I've come across this theory a lot, and you get a lot of these kind of TikTok conspiracy shills talking about how Admiral Byrd flew through the polar opening and into the hollow earth, and his findings were covered up. And I was curious about that, because I've heard a lot of people cite it, but I have no idea where it's from. So in light of doing this video, I had to dig into it a lot. As far as I can tell, the source for the whole hollow earth theory and Admiral Byrd's trip is from this book. While here we have a reprint entitled just The Hollow Earth, the full name is ridiculously long. The full name of this book is, I'm gonna have to read it off my laptop because of how long it is, The Hollow Earth, the greatest geographical discovery in history made by Admiral Richard E. Byrd in the mysterious lands beyond the poles, the true origin of the flying saucer. Now I hear you behind your laptop or your phone saying to yourself, wow, that sounds like a reputable academic source, and you would be wrong. The book says that it's published by someone called Dr. Raymond Bernard. It was not published by a Dr. Raymond Bernard. That is a pseudonym. The actual author of this book is called Walter Siegmeister, and it was originally put into print in 1964. There are a few precursor Hollow Earth texts, but this seems to be like the one. This is where all the references to, you know, Byrd's expedition to the South Pole come into play. Now, what is hilarious about this book is it chooses to be wrong in a myriad of ways. One of them is that it gets the dates of Byrd's expedition to the South Pole wrong. It says that Byrd did his expedition in a year when he was actually in the North Pole, and then the author decided to just double down and say that the expedition he was talking about was a secret one that nobody knew about, which is a really weird way of covering your ass in a situation like that, but I respect the hustle. Now, I have to admit, I haven't read through this book cover to cover, because frankly, this video is already long enough. But I was thinking, if you guys would be at all interested, I'd be more than happy to read this and sort of do a bit of a book review and talk about all of these pages of bullshit. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. I'd be happy to do it.
Yup, it's the infamous Hollow Earth theory. And yeah, all of this is in his diary.
So Philip claims that all of this information is in his secret lost diary, something that was rediscovered by his son years later. Now, I did find some evidence of an actual diary left behind by Byrd, and in it, it had a smoking gun. In it, there was evidence that Byrd, in his flyover of the North Pole, may have actually missed the North Pole by like 150 miles. So the kind of controversy that you'd only care about if you're a big fucking nerd. As for this diary that claims that he flew into an opening in the Earth's core, no, there is no evidence of that. So you may be wondering, he's still referencing it, so where's that reference from? Well, I did some digging. That would be from this book, The Missing Diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, A Secret Expedition and Journey to a Paradise Inside the Earth. Now, this is, allegedly, a reprint of The Missing Diary, recreation of Admiral Richard Byrd's historic flight planned by the International Society for a Complete Earth. Readers of this diary who wish for additional information can send something to the Complete Earth Society located in Felton, California. So the scientific among you are now thinking, okay, we have a book that references the Lost Diary, and we have the Lost Diary itself. So that's pretty conclusive, right? Sort of. This was published in 1960. This diary was published in 1990. I can find no earlier reference to this diary that actually has any substance behind it. Now, I know that this is more something that has to do with the print of this particular copy of the diary, but I do think it's worth noting that this entire diary looks like this and is printed in Comic Sans. Now, while it doesn't actually say the author on the cover for some fucking reason, this is by a guy named Tim Beckley. Tim Beckley appears to be an actor and a semi-prolific fiction writer. Here are some of the titles of his other highly scientific works. We got Give Me Your Books, Tim Beckley. Oh no, did he die? Oh, Fuck, now I feel like an asshole. Why won't you go to the books page? Subterranean Worlds Inside Earth. MJ-12 and the Riddle of Hangar 18. Revealing the amazing powers of Harry Houdini. Revealing the amazing powers of Harry Houdini, updated. Psychic, medium, clairvoyant, prophet. Angels of the Lord, expanded edition, calling upon your guardian angel for guidance and protection. Huh. Kahuna power, authentic chants, prayers, and legends of the mystical Hawaiians. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna trust anything about the mystical Hawaiians from a fucking dude named Tim Beckley. Okay, so long-winded way of saying I have no fucking idea what the story is here about this this lost diary thing. It's clearly a bunch of bullshit because I don't think that the legendary Admiral Richard E. Byrd would have included in his diary 4 fucking exclamation points next to each other. I don't know, that seems a little unprofessional to me. Now, I'm not gonna go into all of these right now, but all of that is to say that there is absolutely no credible evidence to back up any of this. If you guys want me to do a video going over these books, no, I'm not gonna say more than happy to, because frankly, I would resent you all for having me do it, but, you know, I have them both, and I should at least probably read them, considering I did give them fucking money for these, which I regret. So, if you want to see the Hollow Earth video, leave a comment.
And maybe these beings and all the flying discs mentioned are also related to all the UFO sightings we've been seeing in the past couple of years.
Oh, yeah, all the UFO sightings we've been seeing in the past couple of years. Can't go a fucking minute without seeing one of those things. I look there, there's a UFO. I look over here, there's a UFO. I go to the fucking gas station, and there's a UFO buying a pack of Marlboro Reds while his buddy's filling the fucking flying saucer with a cool mint zin in his mouth.
Apparently, Admiral Byrd really wanted to share these findings, but was ordered by the military to stay silent about it.
Wow, dude, that's fucking crazy. The military, they're lying to us, bro. Let's not talk about, you know, MK Ultra or anything like that. Let's talk about this bullshit. I don't get why conspiracy theorists can't just be mad at the government for the things that the government's actually doing. Why do we have to make up things to get mad at the government for?
These giant holes have been reported to be seen at the poles on numerous occasions.
I like the images he shows here. The first one is like some sort of like glacial tunnel, but the second one is just the eye of a hurricane. You thought you could pull a fast one on me there, Philip. I know what a hurricane looks like.
In 1829, a fisherman named Olaf Janssen claims to have sailed through a polar opening and into the planet's interior, where he met a race of tall beings.
This is what I mean when I say that Philip yaps. That little clip right there saying that, you know, in 1880 something, a guy named this sailed into a place and met a bunch of giants, takes a handful of words and about 10 seconds to say. This is part of like a 6-minute video. But despite this video being 6 minutes, that's the only information you get on that topic. That's the only thing you hear about it. He doesn't tell you where he gets that information from. He doesn't give anything to back it up. He just states it like it's facts and keeps moving along. So, Philip, you are willfully misleading your audience here, because you are providing information without telling them where it's from. Now, if you're citing like common knowledge, that's one thing. You don't really have to, you know, do a source for that, but you are making a really, really bold claim and not even doing the diligence of saying where it's from. So what is the story behind the guy who sailed into the polar opening? You know his name, you know the date he did it. That seems like you kind of have somewhere that you're basing that off of. Oh wait, you don't even tell us. Well, Philip, lucky for you, I have made this entire video where I do your job for you, so I'll tell you. That claim is from this book, The Smoky God of Voyage to the Inner World. Introduction: The Smoky God of Voyage to the Inner Earth is a classical, fictional Hollow Earth adventure presented as a true account and first published in 1908. Do I even need to go on with this? This book is actually fucking great. It is like a fun, almost like a fairy tale. It is just a fantastical novel that is written as if it were true, because they don't expect people to take it at face value. The author, Willis Emerson, is doing it as an interview with this Olaf Janssen, and he begins in his foreword by saying this: I fear the seemingly incredible story which I am about to relate will be regarded as the result of a distorted intellect, superseded possibly by the glamour of unveiling a marvelous mystery, rather than a truthful record of the unparalleled experiences related by one Olaf Janssen, whose eloquent madness so appealed to my imagination that all thought of an analytical criticism has been effectually dispelled. Philip, not only are you claiming that this is a real event that happened and not citing where it comes from, but you're also trivializing the actual book. This book isn't meant to be taken at face value. You're not supposed to have to make the decision of it's true or it's fiction. You're supposed to not think either. You're just supposed to read it and enjoy the story. Yes, at the end of the day, it is a fiction book. It says that. But even the author is sort of playing into this idea of, I am going to tell you a story and you're going to listen to it and you're going to have a nice time. No, I am an archaeologist. I'm not an English major, so I'm not going to go into a whole fucking analytical, you know, philosophical rant about what it means to misinterpret fictitious work. But there's a great story in here, a piece of storytelling that should be regarded with some amount of respect instead of just using bits and pieces of it to bolster your bullshit claims to 1.5 million people. So there you go, Philip. I got another free idea for you. Why don't you make something talking about this book? That would be kind of interesting, right? You kind of talk about, well, it says this, it says that, and the other thing. It's all from this. They say it's fiction, but like, what if, you know? I would even be okay with that. There you go, $1 million idea, Philip. Oh man, okay. I swear to God, it's getting colder in here. It is not, it's actually getting warmer in here. Okay, well that's the end of Hollow Earth, thank God. Which means now we get to talk about something really fun, like the pyramids in Antarctica.
Now we get to the Ellsworth Mountains in Antarctica. Okay, get your tinfoil hats ready for this one, because this satellite footage from 2016 shows what could be a pyramid buried in the South Pole.
Okay, I mean, I guess I'll give you some credit for could be. Everything could be fucking anything. It's just a matter of likelihood, isn't it? I've talked about this one so many times on short form that I'm not even gonna bother with it, but it is a mountain with glacially carved sides. You know, Antarctica being a continent completely covered in ice, this tends to happen. If you wanna look to another example, here's the Matterhorn. Sort of a similar shape. That's what happens when, you know, it's got glaciers running on all sides.
And even professors admit it. And obviously the Google debunkers will tell you, oh, it's a natural mountain formation formed through erosion.
God, this guy drives me fucking Google debunkers.
But I don't know what kind of looking ass mountains are cut this perfect.
And I don't know what kind of looking ass mountains are cut that perfect either. Philip, a glacial looking ass mountain is carved that perfect, Philip. I don't know what kind of looking ass mountain is carved this perfect. Why would there be a pyramid in Antarctica? Well, the UPS truck is here. That's exciting. That is almost so nice. I'm not even gonna bother. I am so stoked about the UPS truck being here that I'm even gonna talk about that pyramid anymore because frankly, it makes me wanna,
Okay, so this is a map of pyramids all around the world.
Oh, we're back to pyramids. I told you the pyramids were coming back. It's cold in here. I gotta put my foreskin on. Oh, yeah. That's better. Dude, check this thing out. Isn't this fucking rad? Look at that. Shout out Zbosky Crafts on Instagram. Thanks for the foreskin, babe. Blew out my candle to go eat lunch, and now my lighter doesn't work anymore. My life is in shambles.
Okay, so this is a map of pyramids all around the world, all allegedly built independently of each other and all having identical structures that follow this similar step pattern.
Do you see why I started this video by talking about hyperdiffusion? Philip, you said the same thing when you were talking about the anthropomorphic birds. You were like, they're identical. And I gotta ask, do you and I have the same definition of identical? Because neither these birds nor those pyramids are identical. They definitely have some superficial similarities, like they are both anthropomorphic bird people and the pyramids are all, you know, pyramids. But that's kind of where the similarities end, Philip.
Now I know, most historians will tell you, oh, it's just the easiest tall structure to build. It's human nature.
It's human nature. It's in our blood, baby. It's in my DNA. I will revert to pyramid. Yeah, I've actually never heard a historian say that it's human nature, but I do like that, actually. It's like how everything eventually evolves into a crab. Eventually, all humans will make a pyramid. It's something that we're just implicitly drawn towards. Now, Philip, I know you're saying this facetiously. Like, and historians want you to think X, Y, Z. But there's a reason historians think that. That's because it's the most likely option. So let's look a little deeper into these pyramids, shall we? So the pyramids all have sort of the same building components. Most of them are built out of stone. Some of them are built out of like earthen bricks. I don't think any of the ones he's showing are earthen, but most of them are built out of stone. When you're building with stone, there's only so high up you can go with it. While stone is really strong, it's really fucking heavy. And so you can really only build so many stories off the ground, especially without modern technology, before it becomes a problem. So the solution to that is if you want to build a really big structure out of stone, the base has to be substantially larger than the top. And that's why there's so many variations of pyramids. The classic, you know, pyramids at, at Giza, where it's just like, you know, pretty much smooth sides, or what was once smooth sides. There's also stepped pyramids all over the world, which are structurally more like increasingly smaller terraces built on top of each other. And while both of those are pyramids, they're both kind of different. This is also where you can tell that Philip has no background in archaeology or anthropology and just listened to Graham Hancock once, because all of these pyramids built in different parts of the world have different purposes. The pyramids in Central and South America are, you know, stepped terraces with a temple at the top. The pyramids in Egypt are burial structures. Some of them have chambers on the inside, others don't. Some of them have staircases. They have about as many differences as you can possibly have for a structure and still call it a pyramid.
If it's so easy, why are our 21st century brains not capable of doing what dozens of ancient civilizations have repeatedly been able to do?
Whoa. Dude, you are asking some powerful questions right now. Honestly, that's kind of a self-read right there, Philip. I think you're the only one who's confused by this. The reason we haven't built any pyramids is not because we can't, it's because there's just no reason to. It would be ridiculously expensive, take up a ton of manpower that should be going to, you know, other things we actually need. So it's not a matter of, you know, why haven't we? It's because we can't. It's a matter of why haven't we? Because why the fuck would we? We have no purpose for them anymore. Our culture does not demand pyramid other than that one. But we're going to be getting into the Bass Pro Shop pyramid later because there's something there that even Philip hasn't discovered.
All with a nearly identical look, yet built by completely different cultures with zero contact among each other and thousands of kilometers apart. And the pointy Egyptian pyramids look much different than all the other step-shaped pyramids all around the world. But this is just the tip.
Philip, I'm going to be upfront with you. I'm going to say the tip is enough. No more. You don't need any length or otherwise accoutrement to the tip.
We got way more lesser-known pyramids, even older than the Egyptian ones that ain't even standing anymore. Like the Gunung Padang Temple in Indonesia. Doesn't look so hot now, but used to be a step pyramid.
Piece of evidence number 36 that Philip watched Ancient Apocalypse once and decided to make it his entire personality. Philip, you're really pushing the definition of pyramid now. Does that look like a fucking pyramid to you? No, it doesn't. I know Graham Hancock said it was, but you don't have to listen to him, buddy. You can think for yourself. If this constitutes a pyramid, then fucking everything is a pyramid. I'm sorry. This literally just has like some terraces. I'm so pissed that the first place that Gunung Padang got, you know, large coverage to a mainstream audience was from Ancient Apocalypse, because now it does shit like this. We can't even recognize the actual cool, you know, historical facts about this site. Instead we got fucking Alpha Sig here talking about how it's, you know, a pyramid or something. Actually, no, this guy definitely wouldn't have been at Alpha Sig. He looks more like a teak kind of guy.
At least that's what they thought, until a more recent radiocarbon analysis shows that the lower parts of this temple go as far back as 28,000 years.
Did you do your own research here, Philip, or did you just happen to turn off Netflix as you started recording on your phone? There has been a disappointing lack of really good conclusive archaeological evidence coming out of Gunung Padang, and it's been made even more difficult by the release of Ancient Apocalypse because it's muddied the waters so much that we don't even really know what to believe anymore. But the general consensus seems to be this. There is radiocarbon dates from Gunung Padang that date back almost 30,000 years. What? Smoking gun. Okay, pause. What is a radiocarbon date? Well, it comes from natural material, you know, ash, wood, bone, etc. So while some researchers have been able to provide 30,000-year-old radiocarbon dates from Gunung Padang, they haven't actually provided any sort of evidence that humans habitated the site at that time. Inhabited the site at that time. Getting a radiocarbon date from 30,000 years ago is as hard as going to a place that has had forest for more than 30,000 years and digging a hole. So don't let people like this fool you by saying radiocarbon dates to 30,000 years ago, because that doesn't really mean that much. Proof of human habitation and a radiocarbon date are evidence that people were there. A radiocarbon date is evidence that a leaf fell there at some point. Now, do I personally believe that humans inhabited this part of Indonesia 30,000 years ago? Absolutely. We have extensive genetic evidence to know that that is the case. Do I think that there is sufficient evidence to say that the pyramid of Gunung Padang was built 30,000 years ago? I currently do not think so. Okay, so Philip's weird hyperdiffusion pyramid ideas aside, we now have to move on to a video of his that, in my opinion, is the single most egregious pseudoscience video I have ever seen in my entire life. It is one that is so bad, so poorly researched, and so far-reaching that I have literally used it as an example when giving guest lectures at universities. That is, of course, the fucking Bosnian pyramid.
Hey, the real Pharaoh's curse is that we haven't built a pyramid bigger than Giza yet.
Hey, I don't know why this guy is so obsessed with the idea that we need to build a pyramid to prove something. Why don't you go build a pyramid, Philip, huh? Put your fucking money where your mouth is. That's right, baby. We're talking about the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia.
Buried Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia, and you will not believe what they found there. In 2005, archaeologist Dr. Samir Osmanagic realized, hey, this hill in the small Bosnian city of Visoko is oddly shaped like a pyramid.
No. Samir Osmanagic is not an archaeologist, Philip. He is a Bosnian businessman. It is pretty funny, though, that you can see a lot of these, like, pseudoscience people just getting conned, you know, fucking left, right, and center by businessmen.
This hill has virtually every characteristic of a real pyramid, and we continue to ignore it.
Oh my god, again with this fucking language. And yet we continue to ignore it. We're literally just asking questions here. Why is it that no archaeologist has acknowledged that this hill that isn't a pyramid is actually a pyramid? The Pyramid of the Sun is not a pyramid. Correction, let me walk that back. We currently have no evidence to definitively state that the Pyramid of the Sun is a pyramid. To give you a little bit of background, the Pyramid of the Sun was discovered by this guy, Samiros Menegits, who is a Bosnian businessman, let me reiterate. So when he found this hill that sort of looks like a pyramid, he thought to himself, hey, I can make a whole ton of... What kind of currency do they use in Bosnia? Bosnian currency. Wait, no. Oh, I thought it said USD. Hey, I can make a whole lot of Bosnia-Herzegovina convertible marks off of this. Is that actually what it's called? Bosnia-Herzegovina convertible mark. Figure. Samir got his start working for gas companies in Texas, meaning that he was reared from a young age knowing how to exploit nature's beauty in order to milk the pockets of a bunch of gullible people. So what he did is he claimed that he found a pyramid in this small town of Visoko, and then he made himself the president of the Pyramid Foundation, and, you know, got a whole bunch of money from the government, and pretty much made like a massive tourist trap in order to drive industry to this town. But don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for someone who's trying to drive tourism to more remote parts of the world. But what I don't have respect for is Philip, who's too much of a fucking dolt to actually do any research himself.
To start, it has 4 triangular sides. That's it. Pyramid confirmed. We're done. Joking, but it's got even grade slopes and corners that connect perfectly under the foliage.
No, Philip, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you wanted to do a video saying, hey, this businessman found this place, and here's his evidence for why he thinks it's a pyramid, and then, you know, look at the actual scientific consensus, I would actually be okay with that, because at the end of the day, we do need diversity of opinion in the archaeological world, because that's how discoveries are made. But this fucking guy phrases the entire video like this is an actual pyramid.
Perfectly aligned to the cardinal directions, being only 1/300th of a degree off from perfect north, whereas Giza is 2/60ths of a degree off. Electromagnetic frequency readers saw readings of 60 times more.
He just like rattles off a bunch of buzzwords like the electromagnetic frequency ratings and how close it is to magnetic north and all this shit.
4 other smaller hills around it that are also suspected to be pyramids or some other structures, as is usually the case at these ancient sites.
Usually the case at those ancient sites. Oh boy, he's got that fucking image. The amount of times I've seen these images now, like they're just burned into my brain. Look, here's 4 pyramids and 4 examples of 3 doors next to each other and 4 examples, oh no, 5 examples of 3 things next to each other.
And just have a look at these drone shots and tell me these formations look natural to you.
Those look natural to me.
Radiocarbon analysis taken from the rocks hidden beneath the vegetation revealed that this pyramid would be over 35,000 years old, over 30,000 years older than Giza, during a time in which traditional history claims only tribes and cavemen incapable of erecting such monuments roamed the earth.
Oh my god, this guy makes me have a fucking migraine. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, check traditional history off your bingo cards. You can also check off telling everyone that archaeologists think that ancient people were stupid, which they don't. And lastly, Philip, I know we already talked about radiocarbon dating, but apparently we're gonna have to do it again because you learned fucking nothing. A radiocarbon date of 30,000 years does not mean shit. A radiocarbon date dating back to 30,000 years in a layer that shows that there was human habitation actually means something. Getting a radiocarbon date of 30,000 years ago is as easy as being in a place where something was growing 30,000 years ago. You cannot look at this date of 30,000 years and just be like, yeah, this means that it was a pyramid built almost 30,000 years before Giza. What the fuck, Philip?
For reference, here's a timeline of all major ancient civilizations and structures built around the world. And here is where the Bosnian pyramid would stand in that timeline.
Philip, do you actually believe this? Like, I get your whole thing is you want the clicks, you want the views, you got 1.5 million people, and how else are you supposed to engage them unless you're just lying to them constantly? But do you really look at this timeline and think to yourself when the camera goes off, yeah, I said the right thing there. Look at this. Look at how long that distance is. Do you really fucking think that that makes sense to you? Like, just, do you have critical thinking abilities in your head? You can't have this persona of being like, kind of smug and like, you know, everyone knows that I'm saying facts. And then just say something that is just so fucking dumb. Like, it would be one thing if you were like talking about like actual government conspiracies or like, you know, talking about things that the government is actually doing in front of our faces. If you were being all smug about like the privatization of farmland or microplastics in our blood, I'd be like, yeah, fucking go off, king. But instead you're like, yeah, I actually know the truth. Here is all the wonders of the world, and look at this pyramid. It's all the way over here. Mainstream archaeology won't tell you about that.
Excavations also revealed huge blocks of 7 tons each, stacked with geopolymer binding, which is an ancient type of cement.
Dude, this fucking guy. A geopolymer binding. Philip, you're just looking at fucking sedimentary rocks. Like, oh my god, you believe the words that come out of your own fucking mouth.
Geopolymer binding, which is an ancient type of cement and perfect placement.
This site wasn't in Ancient Apocalypse, but I'm gonna use this as another piece of evidence because this is the same shit that they said about the Bimini Road and that fucking thing. Philip sees multiple slabs of stone fit really well together and doesn't realize that it's sedimentary rock that has cracked. Of course they fit really well together. Where the fuck else would they be?
Along with perfectly landscaped terraces and other obvious architectural design, but oh no, these are all natural.
Yes, they are all natural, Philip. Geologists have studied the Bosnian pyramid, and you want to know what they found? The stone layers, the depositional layers in the Bosnian pyramid are the exact same as on every other mountain around them, meaning that they were all deposited from the same layers because it is a natural formation, no matter how much it looks like a pyramid. In early 2006, osmologists asked a team of geologists from the nearby University of Tuzla to analyze core samples at Visokica. They found that his pyramid was composed of the same matter as the other mountains in the area, alternating layers of conglomerate, clay, and sandstone. You could have literally just Googled this, Philip. It would have prevented you from saying something that was wrong. Unless, of course, you don't actually care about what's right or wrong, and you're just doing this to get as many clicks as possible, because you're kind of a sellout.
Note that this was all uncovered up to a meter underground, as would be expected of a pyramid over 35,000 years old.
Yet again, Philip, does that seem like it makes any goddamn sense to you? Fucking God. I don't know how someone's persona can be so smug and so wrong at the same time.
With some even going as far as saying Dr. Osmanagic purposely placed these carved stones here to deceive the public.
I don't even know if anyone actually said this or if he just made that up, because I don't think anyone in their right mind would think that he placed these stones here himself. But notice how that's the only credit that Philip gives to the alternative viewpoint. He's like, and these fucking idiots think he moved them there. Like, no, Philip, that is the lowest concern here. There are so many other things wrong that are so much more obvious.
And famed Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, who oversees most of the Egyptian pyramid investigations, even petitioning the Bosnian government to stop these excavations.
Yeah, not because it's a cover-up, because it's literally just a fucking waste of money. You are paying a Bosnian businessman, a Bosnian con man, fucking hundreds of thousands of dollars to dig up a mountain. If you actually cared about history as much as you do, Philip, maybe you would care about actual archaeologists getting funding and resources so that they can learn more things. Or would you rather keep shelling out, thousands of dollars for the next fucking con man who said he's figured out the key to the world?
Within hours of this international discovery, the story is swept under the rug and labeled a hoax.
The story was not... Philip, you are so... I feel like I'm having a conversation with a toddler. Nobody listens to me. Nobody cares. Everyone keeps trying to hide it. They don't want you to know the truth. Philip, it isn't some big cover-up. It's just not an archaeological site. So since it's not an archaeological site, why would it even occupy the airspace in, archaeological communities? I'm not going to waste my breath. Well, I guess I am going to waste my breath talking about a fucking pyramid, but I have a reason. God damn it. I don't know why archaeologists would waste their breath talking about this fucking mountain when we have actual work to do.
50 archaeologists around the world remained optimistic and actually joined Osmanagic's work in Bosnia, with virtually every single one of them who actually saw it in person, confirming that nature could not have formed these hills.
Actually, that's not true. I can find no evidence of these 50 archaeologists. I don't doubt that he had 50 volunteers there who were working on it with him. I doubt they were archaeologists because every archaeologist who's looked at it has said it's a fucking mountain.
Further studies revealing an entire underground tunnel system in the area, the longest subterranean complex of any pyramid in the world.
Whoa! You know why? Because it's a fucking cave, Philip. It's a mountain made out of sedimentary rock. There's like layers of stone underneath that are all really loose, so when the water percolates down, it makes a fucking cave. Jesus Christ, we need to fund education in this country. You can't get me this fucking riled up looking like this, bro, okay? It's ridiculous.
Inside these tunnels, large stone blocks were found that clearly seem to be artificially created.
What is your expertise in this field, huh, Philip? Now, every archaeologist will tell you that is definitely just a natural rock, but me, the guy on TikTok, I know the truth. You know, I said that this is sort of like sedimentary rock deposits. The reason these rocks are so smooth is because they were once carried by moving water. They're like old river stones and things. So, of course, you're gonna find rocks like this buried in the layers of this mountain.
In place. Other artifacts like this giant round stone that no one can explain, and a whole bunch of other smaller ancient trinkets, statues, and even what appears to be a map carved into stone were all found around the Bosnian Valley of Pyramids.
You're not covering your trail very well here, Philip. You kind of accidentally outed yourself there. They were all found around the Bosnian Valley of Pyramids. That's because people have lived in this valley for fucking ever. That doesn't mean they built the mountain. You're finding artifacts from all different points in time in a part of the world that has been occupied for tens of thousands of years, and then just attributing it to the nearby mountain. Also, is that just a rock that looks like a face? It is absolutely just a rock that looks like a face.
All dismissed as irrelevant or flat out ignored by mainstream archaeology.
I'm gonna keep chugging Monster energy drinks and eating fucking McDonald's hamburgers because it's the archaeologists that are lying to us. I wish that my prefrontal cortex was soft enough to genuinely be convinced that archaeologists are the ones we need to be worried about. That's so much more comforting. Like, I really wish this was the biggest problem we faced in the world. Someone should actually tell Philip what the government gets up to. He might actually be kind of concerned about it. If I could just sit back on my laurels and talk about fucking this mountain that looks like a pyramid, that would be so much better. It's too bad that the government doesn't represent us at all and is actively trying to do harm to our communities. Well, Philip's not talking about that, so I guess this must be the real problem.
Even the peak of the Sun Pyramid forms a perfect triangle with the peaks of the nearby hills.
So this video is a complete fabrication. The Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, as of right now, there is zero actual archaeological evidence that it is a man-made structure. Yet Philip spends this entire video talking about how it is. He doesn't actually give any sources for this, obviously. So all he does is just rattle off a bunch of stats about this pyramid, and then in place of giving any archaeological evidence, he's like, and the archaeologists don't want you to know about it. So Philip, I did a little bit of research for you because I know how much you care about facts. And you know what? I'm gonna even recite it to you. Pyramid mania has descended upon Bosnia. Over 400,000 people have visited the site since October 2005 when Osmanagic announced his discovery. Souvenir stands peddle pyramid-themed t-shirts, wood carvings, piggy banks, clocks, and flip-flops. Nearby eateries serve meals on pyramid-shaped plates, and coffee comes with pyramid-emblazoned sugar packets. Foreigners by the thousands have come to see what all the fuss is about. Wow, so it sounds like this pyramid thing has been working out pretty well for the town of Visoko. And now again, as I said earlier, I am all for finding ways to encourage tourism to smaller communities. And good on the locals for being able to capitalize on it in order to, support their livelihood. This mountain has turned into a nationalist rallying cry for Bosnia. Skeptics who say the pyramid claims are examples of pseudo-archaeology pressed into the service of nationalism have been shouted down and called anti-Bosnian. Whoa, I don't know, Philip. It sounds like you're getting into a bit of a gray area here. A place where a lie has been co-opted by a political agenda, and that anyone who actually tries to speak the truth or analyze these claims further is shouted down. Yeah, that really sounds like the side that you want to be on. Now, wouldn't it be hilarious if Philip, while trying to do his whole preach the truth, just asking questions bullshit, is inadvertently falling into an actual con man's conspiracy? That would be pretty weird, wouldn't it? His Pyramid of the Sun Foundation in Sarajevo has garnered hundreds of thousands of dollars in public donations and thousands more from state-owned companies. Osmanagic says his foundation has received over $1 million, including $220,000 from Malaysia tycoon Vincent Tan, $240,000 from the town of Visoko, $40,000 from the federal government, and $350,000 out of Osmanagic's pocket. Meanwhile, the National Museum in Sarajevo has struggled to find sufficient funds to repair wartime damage and safeguard its collection, which includes more than 2 million archaeological artifacts and hundreds of thousands of books. Uh-oh, a lot to unpack there, isn't there, Philip? Well, I don't know if this pyramid is real or not, but what I do know is that this Osmanagic guy has made a fucking fortune off of this thing. I also can't help but notice, I have no way to back this up, so, this legally is just a speculation, but a large donation of $350,000 out of his own pocket is pretty interesting, because I happen to know that if you donate a large amount of money, it becomes a tax exemption. Now, it seems that Osmanagic did pretty well working in the oil industry in Texas in his early years, so I'm not surprised that he has a little dragon pile to sit on. But it seems like not only is this ploy very effective at getting a lot of money from external sources, but it's also a really good place for him to perhaps launder some of his own. Again, for legal reasons, I am literally just thinking out loud here. I have no evidence for any of this, so don't take this at face value. I'm just thinking out loud, looking at these numbers, and Philip, I'm just asking questions. Philip, you know how you were just giving shit to that Egyptologist for saying that they shouldn't be excavating at this pyramid? You could have told that whole story. Remember how I just said that the museum in Sarajevo is struggling to repair wartime damages? This fucking bullshit, this stupid mountain is sucking up all the air in the room, and actual archaeology isn't able to be done. It's turned into a nationalist rallying cry when the actual national pride that exists in the museum has been destroyed by a war and does not have the funding to be repaired. If you actually gave a single fuck about history, you would be talking about these things instead of just saying whatever will get you the most views. Philip, this is a bit of a smoking gun here, because all this money stuff is pretty shady, and you're kind of endorsing it. But wouldn't it be even worse if the government was involved? The Pyramid Foundation's political clout appears considerable. When the Minister of Culture of the Bosniak Croat Federation blocked the renewal of foundation permits in 2007 on the grounds that the credibility of those working on the project was unreliable, the action was overruled by the Federation's Prime Minister. Quote, "Why should we disown something that the entire world is interested in?" End quote. He told reporters at a press conference following a visit to the site that, quote, "The government will not act negatively towards this project." Another member of the national presidency also expressed support for Osmanagis's project on the grounds that it helps the economy. That doesn't look very good. You're saying that the government is willing to allow a con man to continue conning people because it brings economic revenue to the town. Again, I'm all for economic revenue, but Philip, you are a liar. You are a liar who is now literally supporting what some could classify as a government conspiracy. There is a con man who is claiming that he found a pyramid. He makes himself the head of the foundation where he can make a shit ton of money. Some people with a backbone in the government are like, hey, maybe we should allocate resources somewhere else. And other people in the government shut him down because, and I quote, "it makes a lot of money." I'm going to say one more time, Philip, you are a goddamn liar. So there's a reason I'm so pissed off about this video in particular, and a reason that I have used it when I have given guest lectures at universities, because this fucking video has 30 million views. 30 million views. Philip, I don't know if you have a spine, but if you do, I'm going to appeal to it now. You know what? I'm even going to take off my foreskin so that you can take me a little bit more seriously. Philip, you have an audience of 1.5 million people. You have a responsibility to use that power wisely. Because of this video, there are 30 million people who may now believe in a lie that you told them, a lie that you had the chance to research and not spread. Now, I'm going to kind of take the mask off for a second here and speak to you as a man to a man. I know you don't believe this shit. We're gonna get into your very early videos later in this, but I have seen pretty much every video on your channel, and I know that you're interested in science. I know that you're interested in history, and I also know that this is the shit that gets you the most views. The proof is in the pudding. You saying this bullshit got you 30 million views. But I also have to say that, Philip, this is fucking shameful. You are not only actively doing damage to the communities that provide all of the information that you genuinely care about, but you are elevating a fucking con man's grift. If you do have a spine, you will agree with me when I say that there is no amount of views that can justify lying to 30 million people. For the foreseeable future, this one video is the holotype specimen for pseudo-archaeology bullshit. Because you, Philip, have summed it up in this one video. You don't seem to give a fuck about what's right or what's truthful, just what's gonna get you the most views. You missed the opportunity to talk about a lost in historical artifacts after a nation is ripped apart by war, and you have actively taught people to not only distrust, but to vilify those who provide the information that you are interested in. If you're actually watching this and you feel fucking pissed off right now, you should, because you should be fucking ashamed. I am going to get into giving you some advice on how I think you should turn your channel around, but purely because this is something that I have actually used in presentations, I have to say, you should be fucking ashamed. Okay, well, that was fucking intense. That's all I have for the Bosnian Pyramid right now. I did add the Bosnian Pyramid to the Wheel of Fame for awful archaeology, so I will talk about it more extensively at some point. I also want to make a little prediction right now. If, for some fucking reason, Ancient Apocalypse gets a second season, the Bosnian Pyramid is going to be in it. And if it is, I will fly to Bosnia myself and debunk it on site. Okay, now let's talk about